Good afternoon, Shyamala, and thank you so much for giving us your time on the AI ML show today.
Thank you so much, Swati. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know we've had some scheduling issues. So I want to start off with the amazing career trajectory you've had. I know you've written a number of books that I'm yet to read, but eager to read as well. So tell me a little bit about where you started off. How did you land in the role of leading conversational agents for Ford, which is super exciting?
That's interesting. So, I come from a very small town in India called Jabalpur. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I am.
So,
I am.
yeah. So, back there, like I did my entire education there, my schooling, my engineering. I'm a civil engineer graduate. So, after engineering, my interest was more on the engineering, drawing, and creative side of things. So, I got into architecture and started doing architecture designs for houses, but
Wow.
very soon I got tired doing that because I did not find anything challenging anymore. The patterns were the same, the designs were the same, and I'm a kind of person who always like challenges. I
Mm-hmm,
constantly want myself to be challenged, otherwise
mm-hmm,
I'm like done with that job or role. And that's when I my sister used to do conversation sorry my sister used to do engineering in computer science, and she used to talk about artificial intelligence.
wow.
And because as a part of her curriculum, AI was part of that, and she used to talk about AI, and that's when I fell in love with artificial intelligence, and I was like, wow, this sounds fascinating, and I
Mm-hmm,
want to be in this field. And
mm-hmm.
that's when I started working hard towards learning computer science, although I was not an engineer, but I started doing courses around computers to understand what it is and all. And then I was introduced to web design and the world of internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I pretty soon got into the like UX design and web design side of world. And as I started doing, I started seeing myself doing more and more of those kind of things, solving complex problems, designing mobile applications, website designs, and things like that. In 2012, I was hired by Amazon and I was the first designer, UX designer for Amazon India. So when I joined Amazon India, there were a lot of cool stuffs, and I'm also, a kind of person who likes challenges. So I got to participate in a hackathon. And
Mm.
in this hackathon, I my idea was mostly about how can we enable shopping, especially in India. People want to try things before they purchase. So how can we use the power of artificial intelligence and AR, VR, and voice together to build something? So I came up with a concept which was pretty much well received by the industry, and I won the People Choice Award. That was a combination of using AR, VR on your smartphone and the voice to try out things. And it was really fun. And since then, I've been just focused on voice, AI, and conversational design. And yeah, my journey just progressed from there to now, where I am leading the conversational AI efforts for Ford Motor Autonomous.
Awesome, awesome. You have unpacked so much in this career trajectory, especially for girls and women who think, oh, I'm not from science background. What can I do? Always, I like to say, and which you have proven through your career, is that even though you started in civil engineering, how you pivoted because of your curiosity and your love for learning. And I think that's an amazing story for everybody who thinks, oh, if I don't have a math and computer science background, what can I do? You seem to be that autodidact, learned on your own and did a lot of courses. So those of people who think they don't have computer science should not regret, but if they have the curiosity and the inkling for learning, obviously they can pivot. And
Absolutely.
another amazing thing is you just followed what was interesting to you. Looks like you participated in the hackathon and you did the design between VR, AR, and voice. I wish there's more of that, because one thing that, I love shopping, but online shopping for me personally really sucks, because half the time I'm returning because of the way the fit and everything. So I wish we have more of those apps. I'm sure you will make that happen sometime.
Soon we'll
Um,
have it.
yeah, yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about your role at Ford and that particular use case in autonomous vehicles and conversational agents and so on.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I lead the autonomous digital assistant effort here, which includes the roadmap and includes the implementation and all of those kind of things. So I always like to say when vehicle becomes the driver, voice becomes the companion, because right now you are in a car and there's no one else around. You may have 100 plus questions and you don't know what to do, how to ask. Even if you look at, if you are in someone else's car, you may be not comfortable interacting with some of the controls because you don't know and you're scared to mess around with things, just
Mm-hmm.
touching something. Those kind of things will happen a lot. And with that in mind, I was like, what should we do in autonomous world to make it comfortable for people to use or drive or ride in an autonomous? So there are a lot of things, right? People will have questions, people will have queries, and they may want although for initial use cases, I feel like people will be just hopping in and hopping off in a ride and share vehicle. But even in that use case, the most critical ones which I see is being able to help the user through some queries or questions, or guiding them like what's in the vehicle. There may be some proactive aspects where I'm constantly telling like, hey, we need to pull over, or there's something coming up or something along those lines. So people want to be constantly updated about the things. And conversational AI or voice is the best modality because, well, it enables more and more people to use. It's not just for people who are normal, but also who have any kind of limitations will be able to use it seamlessly. So that's how I look at the autonomous. There are many, many more use cases within that, companionship kind of, where you may just want to listen to a music and stuff, which Alexa is pretty much capable. But the differentiator will be pretty much the customer care or FAQs or those kind of things, where you are easing out the experience for the users.
And personalization and all that.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Personalization for everything, right?
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm. And I think more from our generation to the next generation, the expectation is it's all custom made for me. So you're paving the path of the future.
absolutely. See, right now, it's like every device have its own personalization, right? But future will not be like that. Future will be, I will be my biometric.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
No matter where I go, my data is with me.
That's
And that is what,
amazing.
yeah. And the
Yeah,
moment we go there, more and more personalization will happen.
correct. And I like that quotable quote. Can you say that one more time? I love it.
Oh, yeah. The when vehicle becomes the driver, voice becomes the companion.
It's beautiful. I think you're literally creating and paving the path for the future. So tell me a little bit about either the research done in the area of ethical outcomes of voice agents or some of the factors you evaluated, the second degree, third degree impacts of the outcomes of conversational agents.
Wow. There are many. I would start
Yeah.
with, the first and foremost thing is when you talk about conversational, there are two parts to it, right? One is a chatbot and one is a voice bot.
Mm-hmm.
So my research or my work has been mainly on the voice side of things, and I feel like voice is where we have to be more ethical. Not
Mm-hmm.
that conversational chatbot we don't have to, but when with voice, a lot of challenges comes, right? The first thing is most of the voice assistants are female by default, and that's a big problem because we are kind of saying that, or in a way we are making a statement knowingly unknowingly, like female are supposed to be assistants or something along those lines, which is not
Mm-hmm.
true, right? Females are pretty much capable of doing a lot more things than just creating a schedule for you, or just doing the assistant kind of things for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my first and foremost thing has been towards how do we create the balance. We've been doing a lot of research to understand from the users, but at the same time I'm being very cognizant about whether we should use a male voice or a female voice, or whether you should we should have a general neutral, or whether we should look at the personalization, let the user choose what they want. So we are looking at all of those kind of things. But the moment we talk about voice, there are additional things.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people, everyone's accent is different, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have a different accent, I have a different accent, every
Right.
other person from different region will have a different accent. So now most of the voice assistants are not able to understand most of the accents, right? And part of the reason is the data we are collecting and the training which is happening. So I feel like that is again, inclusivity is part of being ethical.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So for me it's really important to also focus on those kind of data and making sure that whatever provider we choose is able to understand as many accents and dialects and languages as possible. So that is another part of being inclusive, because there are issues with black voices, certain percentage of black voices not being recognized or female voices not being recognized and things like that. So my focus has been mainly on those aspects as well, like how do we fix those things, what kind of data should we collect, how do we train the models. We cannot do it directly because we don't have the ASR NLU systems, right? But we have to work with the providers in order to make sure they have the right kind of data from our user base to make sure they are making it more inclusive. Then the third thing, what I have seen from the ethics standpoint is the moment you talk about voice assistants, right? From the conversational design standpoint, people will have a lot of questions. They will ask all sorts of things to your voice assistant. How are you catering for that? Those small talks. Personally, I have seen when you talk to voice assistant, it's not just related, just limited to who are you, how are you. People ask all sorts of things nowadays. It could be related to mental health or any such things. Not sure if that will be a use case in the car, but there may be use cases like that in future. So really being able to think about how do I design for those kind of situations. So working with psychologists or mental health workers, legal, to understand those things are also important. Now the fourth thing is again, if you, because most of the voice assistants are female, there's data which shows like people tend to abuse them. And
yeah,
it happens, like
yep,
I've seen people saying Alexa shut up, or like you suck and all sorts of things. And
right,
that happens more to female than the male.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And there's enough data about that as well. So well,
mm-hmm,
we also have to think about those aspects, like how do I design my assistant and its personality so that it's not taking any shit in
mm-hmm,
first place, be it a male or a female.
right.
So conversation design strategies, or how do I design, it's not just designing a dialogue but also working with how we want to portray the assistant, the brand, and all of those. So there's some work along those lines as well, which I've been focusing on. And of course, there's a lot more areas, but these are like the core areas.
It's amazing. You touched upon a lot of important aspects. The question about why female voices, because it's not like females are subordinates all the time. And there was an interesting research I actually read 3 4 years ago and actually quoted it in one of my conference presentations, where a research actually compared the abuse of all the four voice assistants commonly used, the Google Home and Amazon Alexa, where people literally said sexually abusive language, and how did the voice assistant respond, was the research done. So you touched upon those two important aspects, because the minute you have that voice as a voice personality, people tend to abuse the female versions. And how is it perpetuating the inequalities in society, and all that sort of interesting questions. So grateful for your work in that direction.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think there's a lot, right? A lot to do in that area. So,
Mm-hmm.
especially, I do throwdowns every month where we bring in one topic from it could be any sensitive topic related to depression or anxiety, or it could be bot abuse. So, last month we did bot abuse, and we were just abusing the bot with all sorts of things. You suck and you are stupid, blah, blah, blah. To the extent, there were some really weird ones as well. And most of the time the bot was like, I'm sorry I did not get it, or I'm sorry
Right,
I don't
right.
know where I went wrong, if you want to give me feedback just give it here, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like there's a lot of work which needs to be done in that space, because well, it's not about feedback. When someone is saying that thing, it could be they're just messing around. So really being
Correct.
able to understand, I feel part of the reason is these assistants work in a very rule based kind of manner, right? Like there's intents, and based on the intent you
Mm-hmm.
have a bunch of utterances you have tied, and you're
Utterances
saying
and
like, okay,
intents.
this is the intent, and you've mapped the utterances, and that's how it works. But it has to have more cognitive ability, I think, contextual understanding, all of those things, and the emotion and the tone and all of those tied together. Maybe we can make a lot more smart assistants. The future will be there, if not now, but maybe in few years we'll be there. But I think like that's how we have to start thinking about it.
Right, and you made an important comparison between text and voice agents. There's so much nuance in voice. Like even my can mean something depending on how I say it. So again, amazing work in that area. So my next question is sort of segueing into what are some exciting research trends you're observing in the conversational agent space?
So quite a few, I would say. So one of the thing what I've been looking at and I've been seeing a lot is more emotive text to speech engines nowadays, right? So it's not just robotic anymore, or it's not just a basic SSML tuning, which we are capable of doing like five or six, I think the pauses and stuffs like that. But there's more to it with the neuro, thing. It's more like now you are able to make your assistant more natural, and there's a lot of work being done in terms of how can we make it more emotive. So let's say if I want my assistant to be calm, how do I infuse the calmness in the text to speech? Or if I
Mhm.
want my voice assistant to be more empathetic, how do I infuse that empathy into it, not just through voice, but also through the tone and the tuning of the voice prompts. So there's a lot of work being done in that space. But it's not just that. There's a lot of work being done, like right now ASR, NLU, and TTS, there are three different engines, and they do not work together, right? So there's been some work trying to see how we can seamlessly integrate with each other. For example, there are ASR and NLU engines nowadays where when you say something, it automatically interprets and understands what you said. So now you don't need to hand off to some other engine for understanding. The ASR automatically is capable of understanding. So there's some work in that aspect. But at the same time, based on my spoken language and the tone of the voice, the text to speech engine is now able to understand, like, oh, this person is frustrated. So I need to have a little empathetic voice or soothing voice to help them out. So the TTS is automatically tuning to those things. Right now, it's all hardwired, right? You have to tune the prompts. So even if I say in a very frustrated tone that, you know, things are not bad, or, this sucks, the voice assistant will not understand. And it will
Right,
repeat the same way. The tone is the same, but now there's work being done. Like when you and I are talking, if I'm excited, my tone will be different. If you said
correct.
something and I immediately sense like, okay, Swati is frustrated, maybe I will have a different tone of voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
That level of intelligence is being designed now into the voice assistants, and through these different I would say different kind of engines, and a lot of work is being done in that space.
So for those of us who are not familiar with the ASR and LU, can you explain a little bit about what they are?
Absolutely. So, for digital assistant to work, right, there are a lot of things which has to work. So, when we interact with an Alexa or a Google Assistant, we input through voice, and the output is through voice. But then there are so many different engines and different things working together in conjunction. The moment you speak, your voice is converted into machine understandable format through automatic speech recognition engines or speech to text engines. So once that is converted, then comes your natural language understanding. So let's say you said, what is the weather? Now the NLU engine will then understand if it has the intent and utterances mapped. So you also have to map the intents and utterances and say like, okay, these are the five or six utterances, and this is the intent it has to match to. So if it matches, then the NLU engine will understand like, oh, you want to know about weather. And then what it will do is try to go and do the fulfillment through going to a service provider or wherever it has to fetch that information. Now, weather API, for example, gave the response back in a machine understandable format, which again has to be converted into a human understandable, and then it could be text format. Because your initial input was voice, you would want the output to be voice, and that is where the text to speech engines comes into play, where your result or response is now converted from the text to a speech format so that it's read back to you or spoken back to you.
Mhm.
So again, these are just the three, but there are many more things working in backend, like the dialogue manager, fulfillment engines, and things like that. But these are all the different parts of the AI engines, I would say, which
Mhm.
are important to do what a digital assistant is capable of doing.
Thank you. That was really enlightening. So my last question would be, what sort of advice do you have for either, middle school, high school girls, or even mid-career women if they want to pivot into data science, AI, machine learning, natural language processing, or even specifically conversational agent space?
So there are a lot of great resources, a lot of great podcasts. I learn through listening and
Hmm.
reading, and I'm sure many people will do that. But more than that, I learn through experimenting and playing around with things myself. I
Hmm.
cannot just learn going through a video and saying I know everything about AI, ML,
Right.
or conversation design. So I would say, whatever your interest is, play around with the systems. You have voice assistants out there, play around with them, see how they work, try to make your own voice applications, or try to make your own, AI systems, whatever you want to, whether it is a text to speech engine or whatever your interest is in, right? You can just try playing around and trying making your own things. There are a lot of great resources out there. Podcast, books, blogs, lot of YouTube videos, and there are a lot of courses in Coursera and LinkedIn also related to AI, just to understand the basics. So I would just say keep yourself up to date with those kind of things and keep learning. Learning is the key.
Right.
Learning never stops.
Hmm.
You have to constantly keep learning. That is when you will get into any space you want to, because you can pivot your path.
Absolutely. Those are golden words. Shamla, thank you so much today for your time. This was very, very educational, informational. I'm sure the audience are going to enjoy. And good luck in all your endeavors. And may you continue this crusade in the space of conversational agents and wherever your path takes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swati. It was my pleasure.
Have a good day.
You too.